Welcome back everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 1980 Lotus Esprit Turbo. To give it its full name, it was called the Essex Turbo Esprit. So this is part of the Series 2 version that was produced between 1978 and 1982, with 1,149 being made. However, only 45 of the Essex Esprit Turbos were made out of those 1,149. So because this is inevitably going to be more powerful than even the standard Series 2 or the Series 1 that came before it, it did have some changes over the standard car. But still, other changes that were added even to the standard version of the car were like intake and cooling ducts behind the rear quarter windows, front spoiler, and new alloy wheels. For this Esprit Turbo Essex version, we also got a rear lip spoiler. We got bigger bumpers front and rear. We got this new paintwork that's on the go. As you can see, it says Essex there. And yeah, we also got the likes of a chassis and rear suspension redesign. The brakes were also improved. There was a new aerodynamic body kit, as well as prominent louvered rear hatch, more substantial bumpers, like I said, a deeper front air dam, and yeah, it's also got the new interior as well, including a really rather funky and really rather nicely designed roof-mounted radio, which you'll see here. There you go. That's really cool. That means it keeps all of that out of the way of the driver, so you've got your gearbox and everything unobstructed by anything like that. And I really like this binnacle that it's got going on as well. It's like a cockpit. It's just curved around, and it's really nicely done. Although I'm not a fan of the handbrake being right where you get out of. It looks like it would be a little bit of a cramped way to get out of the car, to be honest. And in a lot of ways this is a mixture of other cars, because you've got buttons and switches from the likes of a Morris Marina, you've got the rear tail lights from a Rover SD1, and it has the Citroen 5-speed gearbox inside as well, which is ultimately the thing that killed this car off, because there was only so many of those gearboxes made. And yeah, even though Lotus only made I think about 10,000 of these over a 28-year lifespan, Citroen was obviously using more of those for their cars, and then when they stopped production of those gearboxes, there was only so many left. So yeah, unfortunately that's what killed this car off. But still, it's fantastic to have this version in the game, as we've not had it since Forza Motorsport 4, and yeah, anything that has pop-up headlights is always going to be on a winner to me. So yeah, but the biggest difference between this and the Series 1 version is the engine. In the Series 1 version we had a 2-litre inline-4 engine. In this we have a 2.2-litre inline-4 turbocharged engine, producing 205 horsepower and 194 pounds-feet of torque. So that's not only 45 extra horsepower over the car before this, but it's also got 54 extra pounds-feet of torque. So mightily impressive in terms of that. Does weigh more though at 2,710 pounds, but at the end of the day you've got way more power and way more torque. So not only is this a faster car at the top end, but it's faster in terms of acceleration, and that extra torque would make it a much more easier car to drive in a day-to-day basis. So yeah, on the whole, a very impressive car. It's unfortunate that not as many of these were made as the the more standard variants, but still, just makes it all the rarer, to be honest. And yeah, like the Series 1 version, this was also featured in a James Bond film. So the Series 1 featured in The Spy Who Loved Me, infamously turned into a submarine. This one featured in For Your Eyes Only. There were actually two of them, one of which got blown up right near the start, which culminated in a chase scene with the Citroen 2CV, and then the second one was used in a few scenes, but no chase scenes, weirdly enough. So yeah, which is a little bit of a disappointment, because with this being even faster and even more striking to look at than the previous version, it would have really rather suited a cracking car chase. So yeah, which is a bit of a shame. But nonetheless, let's get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. Right, here we are at the drag strip, so let's see what this car can do in a straight line before we hit the speed camera, and then we'll take it around the track. So yeah, Lotuses really haven't been mostly about power, they're more about handling and being agile. But yeah, with this being the turbo version, it inevitably is going to be quicker than the previous version, which yeah, that handled beautifully, that car did, but it also didn't really have much in the way of power, which is what ultimately limited the success of that car. So that's 102 mile an hour nearly there, which is obviously not massively quick, but it's still reasonably fast, and definitely faster than what the first generation of the Esprit could do. But yeah, the lack of power in the previous version is ultimately what squandered that car's success. That's why around 400 or so more of this version of the car were made over the first generation. So yeah, but still a really rather fantastic car in its own right. As you can see, it's more than able to handle the extra power. Obviously it has had redesigns, like I've said. Redesigned chassis, redesigned suspension. Also got the better brakes, which helps stop the car, which is helpful when you got more power and torque while also dealing with extra weight. So in terms of the classes, we're in low-end C class, and yeah, those are the stats. So it's not got the best launch in the world, but the acceleration, handling and speed are all fairly good. Braking could be a little bit better, but it's no worse than some other cars from the same kind of era as this. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of this car. It's really nice to have it finally in a game after a very long time. Like I said, last time we had it was Forza Motorsport 4, and it's nice to have another Bond car in a Forza game. So yeah, and I'm a big fan of the James Bond series. To have more cars from that series in the games is always a plus point, because that series has been famous for its cars, and to finally have another one is a great thing. So yeah, let's firstly hear what this car sounds like, and then we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, for some reason this does not have the best sounding engine in the world. It seems really rather quite quiet. Now, that could easily be because of this game. You know, this game's not perfect in terms of getting cars 100% correct from what they're like in real life. But it also could be because turbocharging back in 1980 was still quite a relatively new technology. You know, it only had maybe 2 or 3 other cars before this that had it. You know, the likes of the Saab 99 Turbo, the BMW 2002 Turbo. So maybe technology just wasn't there to make the most of the turbocharger while also keeping the engine noise intact. And that's kind of evident with how this launches as well. It really does struggle to get off the line in some ways. Maybe it's a gearbox, it just isn't able to deal with all that extra power being, you know, for a gearbox for much lower powered cars. But either way, it's not the best sounding engine, but this car more than makes up for that in terms of the way it drives. It's really rather nice and agile. Even though it's got extra weight over the Series 1 version, it still doesn't feel that much of a heavy weight of a car. And yeah, it's got good turning, again because it's mid-engine and rear-wheel drive, you don't have much weight up front, so yeah, it just turns in really rather nicely. And yeah, you've got plenty of grip coming up from the rear end as well on top of all of that. Acceleration wise, 0 to 60 is dealt with in only 6.6 seconds, 0 to 100 is dealt with in 19.5 seconds, and it will go to a top speed of 146 miles an hour, so that is 14 mile an hour quicker on the top end than the Series 1 version. You're talking about 8.8 of a second quicker to 60, and about half a second quicker to 100. Not sure why the 0 to 100 time is still not that great with this car, but regardless, it's still reasonably enough, and yeah, it's more than competitive in comparison to other cars that were mid-engine and rear-wheel drive back in the early 80s. And yeah, at the end of the day, you know, something like this is still striking even nowadays to look at, and yeah, its association with the James Bond series is going to ultimately make this car live on long before other cars from the same era have been forgotten or just have been consigned to the dustbin of history, quite frankly, because yeah, I love this car, I really do. I know it doesn't have the best sounding engine, I know it doesn't have the most power even, you know, Ferraris and Lamborghinis from this period certainly had a lot more in the way of power, but there's just something about this that is a bit more unique, a little bit more retro in the kind of way that still looks kind of modern in some regards. Really rather quite aerodynamic, it's not trying to be too showy, like a Countach for instance, which just constantly got, you know, more and more bits of bodywork attached to it while not really being that much better to drive. While this, you can definitely feel the difference in terms of the handling, the braking, and the performance of the Series 1 version, which, yes, handled great, saw how well it handled in the Spy Who Loved Me, but it just didn't have the power to back up the handling, whereas this certainly does. So yeah, fantastic vehicle, one that I'm really pleased has been added to the game. You can get it for only 20 points in the current season festival playlist. Well worth getting, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. But nonetheless, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.